Hey everybody, Tim here with today's review of Star Trek, the 2009 movie, the reboot, the remake, the restart, whatever you want to call it. To be honest, I'll start right off the bat. I am not a fan of these movies. I'm not a fan of J.J. Abrams. Just me personally, I don't dig it. So coincidentally enough, I could not have planned this any better. From the very beginning, I've done a lot of Star Trek videos, starting from the original series, the animated series, which I condensed the entire animated series down to 4 videos. Let's see, I did the movies, I did The Next Generation, I did Deep Space Nine, I did Voyager, I did Enterprise, and now I'm doing the Kelvin timeline, is what this trilogy is known as, that I absolutely hate. Absolutely. And I'll kind of go into the reasons why. But could not have planned this any better. Oh, and even for Deep Space Nine, I did the documentary, What We Left Behind. And so, as you guys know, any 2-part episode, 3-part episodes, I kind of combine down. Anyway, the reason I bring all of this up, I can't even talk about it. So this, Star Trek 2009, the reboot prequel series, this review is my 666th review for Star Trek. That, I don't know. I think that's actually kind of serendipitous. I think it's perfect for this. So, I don't know. Anyway, starting from the beginning. So, I even kind of sat my husband down and was trying to explain all of the different problems I have with this movie. Mostly with a lot of it has to do with the writing and the storytelling. I do think J.J. Abrams makes good-looking movies. Lots of lens flare, which he knows, but they look really good. He has fantastic visuals. The story is what kind of loses me. Now, this is probably going to be a long video, because I'm going to do this the same way I do all my videos. I'm going to start from the top, and I'm going to work my way down. As they say things, I took notes of it. Now, the main problem I have with this is not a remake, this is not a reboot. I know I just said that, but whatever. This is a new timeline. So Spock and Nero have gone back in time, and to a very specific point, coincidentally, Kirk's birth. Who knew? I don't know. That's my big problem with J.J. Abrams, is things are very, coincidental. Oh, this just happened to work that way. So, the timeline happened to focus at this exact moment when Kirk was being born, down to, the minute. And so, from there on, things start to split. Now, that means, Enterprise is actually both universes, so that's fine. Whatever. And anyway, now the thing that starts to splinter is if you look at the original series or whatever, the actual canon, all sorts of stuff is different than this universe. For example, Kirk was the 3rd captain of the Enterprise. Before Kirk, there was Pike, who Spock was the 2nd officer, because there was Pike, there was number 1, and then there was Spock. So for I think he said it was 17 years. It was a long time. And technically, before Pike, there was even Robert April before Pike. So lots of stuff's going on. Whereas, that's my problem with movies. Now, I love movies, obviously. Star Trek to me should be a TV show because there's so much material and it's so rich. Now, for this movie, you got a great cast. Don't get me wrong. The cast is amazing. Every single actor is a big name actor, which is actually kind of weird to me. That being said, boom, they want it and they want it now. The maiden voyage of Enterprise, we got Spock as the captain and we got Kirk as the second in command. It's okay, so you just cut out 20 years of captains going on with Robert April and Pike and all sorts of stuff. So it's okay, so we're trimming the fat and we're going right into it. So it's okay, so already, me knowing all of this stuff, I already have issues with it. That being said, to be honest with you, this movie was not made for me. This movie was not made for the fans. This movie was not made for the diehards. This movie was made, I'm being honest, to be a cash cow. This movie was actually made for people like my husband who don't watch Star Trek, who don't know anything about Star Trek. This movie was made for those types of people to kind of be like, oh, no, you don't know anything about it? It's fine. This is all brand new people. You're going to love it. It's got explosions and it's got like people in their underwear. It's going to be great. You're going to love it. And it's like, oh, that's what? Like, So, and I don't know. That's my big problem with this movie. So, starting out from the beginning, Chris Hemsworth plays George Kirk. So, probably, to be honest with you, my first like encounter with Chris Hemsworth was probably Thor. So to see him in this movie, I was like, oh shit, look at that. Like, he's skinny and it's great to see kind of him. And then his wife, I forgot what the actress is. She was like only in House at this point. Like, she would later go on to be other stuff, but it was great to kind of get that like stepping stone. So I thought stuff like that was great. Again, the visuals are amazing. The shuttlecraft, like to watch it like come out and stuff, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I loved it. But the storyline, I'm already like not digging it. So we meet Nero, the Romulan Nero, and Ambassador Spock, stuff like that, which I kind of already have problems with Nero and Ambassador Spock. I'll get to that later. That's too far ahead. Let me back up. So I love how they're like naming him after their father. Stuff like that I can get behind. Like I've said over and over again in the Enterprise reviews, like prequels are hard. Don't get me wrong. Like they're not necessarily all bad, but they're hard because you're going to get people that sit there and nitpick like what's going on. And so you got to be smart with what are you going to reference and what are you not? And so to see Kirk's parents, like, let's name him after my father. Tiberius? No, let's name him after your father. James? Okay. It's like, oh, I get it. I see what you did there. It's funny. James Tiberius. I gotcha. Stuff like that, I'm totally fine with. I'm down. Moving on. The entire scene with James Kirk, like, literally made me take a shot. Like, I could not handle it with the little boy, and he's driving the car, and I actually remember, like, the first time this was one of my first, like, Blu-rays, and I watched the deleted scenes, and the kid on the side of the road originally was his older brother. It was George, who we saw in the original series, and that was fine. I was like, hey, look at that. We got a reference. I would have wanted more of those references. Like, let's see more of George. Nope, just some kid on the side of the road, whatever. The whole scene of him driving the car, jumping off the cliff, I was like, it looks cool. Like, it's beautifully shot, lit great. Why? Why is this needed? To see this little boy jumping off the car? It's not. It's just filler material to show a badass how Kirk is. Like, did not need it, did not like it, lens flare everywhere, not digging it. The whole Vulcan City thing where we see it hanging upside down, again, it's beautiful. Like, I love seeing it. The visuals. Spock fighting? Whatever. I didn't necessarily need that. Talking to Sarek, where like Sarek, like marrying Amanda was the logical thing to do. Now, I'm pretty sure he said that in the Journey to Babel episode of the original series. So something like that, like I was like, okay, I get it. I see what you're doing. Connection. Why did you cast Winona Ryder? Like, she's a terrific actress. Absolutely adore her. Stranger Things is great right now. And supposedly, the opening scene was actually Spock's birth, which would make sense that Amanda was younger, but they cut that, they changed it to Kirk, recast it. Like, I'm sorry, but seeing Winona Ryder is great. Her in old makeup, not so great. It's like watching the ending of Edward Scissorhands. Like, it was really, like, difficult to watch and to kind of sit through. And then the whole, like, disadvantage, you have a disadvantage, so Spock decides to go to Starfleet. Like, Spock saying, fuck you, like, my mom's nothing, like, my mom's important to me. It was an interesting scene, but it was so forced, like, I didn't like it. It kind of bothered me a little bit. Seeing Zoe Saladan is, I think, how you say her name. I'm sorry if I butchered that. As Ahura was great. Been a big fan of hers forever. Whether you go all the way back to like Crossroads, the little bit of in like Pirates of the Caribbean, stuff like that. Most notably, the reason I love, and of course Avatar, but that's later. Most notably, the reason that I think this movie's so funny with her is that if you guys ever saw The Terminal with Tom Hanks, the movie where he's like trapped in like an airport for like a year or something, she's in that and she plays a Trekkie. And at one point, she even dresses up like Yeoman Rand. So to see her go from Yeoman Rand to Ahura, I was like, this is great. Like, it was actually kind of funny to me. The bar scenes, whatever. Pike's whistle was actually kind of cool because it was like the do 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 do, like I can't whistle, so whatever. I mean, I can, but I can't whistle that well. So, anyways, McCoy, I didn't like. Like, Carl Urban's a great actor, and I loved the parts that he was in it. But again, it's one of those where if you're playing your own character, I'm down. I dig it. Those scenes where parts are forced upon you, you can tell, and it's painful. So like him, like, I'm scared to die. I was like, okay, I gotcha. I mean, he's scared to teleport, so he's scared of a shuttle, whatever. And then when he's like, my wife got everything on the planet in the divorce, all I got was my bones. I was like, oh, weird. That's where Kirk got the nickname. Go fuck yourself. Like, it was so bad, and it was so forced. And even when he's like, all I got was my bones. Like, yeah, we get it. That's your nickname. Move along. It was so bad. It was so painful. And technically, again, if you go back to the original series, McCoy was in Starfleet for a while. So, according to this movie, McCoy and Kirk both become cadets. Even though McCoy's like 10, 20 years older, like, they both became cadets at the same time. Like, no, nobody's buying that. What are you doing? You're forcing it in there. So, not liking it. 3 years later, Nero catches Spock, which is cool. And then I did like the scene with the Kobayashi Maru. Like, I won't lie about it. It's kind of a reference to in the Wrath of Khan, where like Kirk's eating an apple and he talks about like, oh, I cheated, and he's eating an apple during the test. My only problem with this whole scene, I love the fact that he cheated. I love the fact that they included it, but he didn't even try, and that's what bothered me. Is where he's just sitting there like, yeah, no, oh, their shields are down, beam them out. Like, I didn't buy that. I feel like Kirk, like imagining William Shatner as Kirk in the Academy, I feel like he would have tried. He would have been like, no, I don't want them to know I cheated. Let's actually like still make it a test, but do something different. Like, I understand Kirk is very nonchalant. He's very like, the rules don't apply. Stuff like that. I get it. But I didn't get that he wouldn't even fake it. Like, he wouldn't have even been like oh, yeah, let's set the torpedoes, beam them. Oh, that didn't work. Let's beam them again. Oh, that time it worked. Stuff like that. Like, he didn't even try. He's just eating his apple. Like, bothered me. So, this brought us to Tyler Perry's cameo. I think this was probably the first Tyler Perry thing I ever saw that wasn't Medea related. And it wasn't bad. Like, it wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. It was just kind of a weird little cameo in there. I love like Ahura and Spock's like little relationship that they got going on, where she's like tells him the relationship, which, I mean, that's something we didn't quite see in the original series. It was more of like Spock and Nurse Chapel, but different timeline. I can buy it, whatever. When they go to the space station, like, that space station was massive. How many ships did it have? Like, it had like 12 ships at least. So, like, something like that was really impressive compared to like Deep Space Nine. I was like, well, shit, like, they need more space stations like that. And it wasn't even like a dry dock. It was like a space station. So something was kind of cool about that. I talked about like how this was the maiden voyage of the Enterprise, and we already got Sulu and Chekhov in there. according to the original series, the Enterprise was around for like a long time before they joined. I mean, even the original series, Chekhov didn't join until season 2, so that was weird. Although Chekhov is probably my favorite part. I love Anton Yelchin. He's absolutely adorable. I remember, like, he's probably, like, there's only been, I think, 2 or 3 celebrities that have really, like, shaken me when they passed. Number 1 is definitely Robin Williams, 100%. And Anton really actually kind of shook me a little bit. Like, I remember exactly where I was, because I was at work, and I was in the deli, and then I actually got a text from one of my friends, and he's like, hey, Anton Yelchin just died. And, like, I sat down. Like, I could not process that information, because he's so young. He's younger than I am. And he was younger than I am. And it's, like, it really, like, kind of, like, shook me a little bit, because I was like, it's such a freak accident and everything. And I was like, he was such a good actor in everything. Even as, like, a little kid, he was super talented. And you could see that, like, acting ability coming out. And he was great in Star Trek even. Like, and it was kind of funny to watch the reviews and stuff like that, where, I mean, clearly he was Russian, and he spoke Russian, and he was fluent in Russian. But to play Chekhov, he was like, yeah, Chekhov doesn't actually even speak Russian. Like, he had to fake another accent. Especially, like, he couldn't say, he couldn't say the letter V, the Vector, which was a shout out to The Voyage Home, stuff like that. But still, to watch Anton Yelchin do it was amazing. The whole scene with Kirk's symptoms was more comedy than anything, where he, like, injects him. He's like, stop it! Like, stuff like that was interesting. To bring us back to the Romulan meeting, like, this is the first time Romulans and Starfleet have met, and they gloss over that. Like, in the original series, that was a big deal. Like, that was the first time human beings have ever seen a Romulan. And that was the point of the episode, is we see the Romulan, and everybody turns and looks at Spock, and is like, what? Like, that's you! And I mean, and the funny thing is the first Romulan we see is the actor that later played Sarek, Spock's father. But still, like, and nobody thinks about it. Nobody's like, hey, why do Romulans have pointy ears like you do? Like, nobody even brings it up. So stuff like that really bothered me. Like, they completely erased all of this history. God, I have so many notes. Like, this is going to be the longest thing ever. Little shout outs like, oh, Sulu has combat training. Well, what's your combat in? Fencing. Clearly a reference to the Naked Now episode where Sulu's like fencing. Where Kirk, Sulu, and Olsen. Do you know who Olsen is? No, you don't, because nobody cares. He's the red shirt that died. Like, I was like, oh, I see what you did. You made another reference. It's stuff like that. It was so bad. I talked about how Amanda, like, I love Winona Ryder. She's great. Why was she cast as Amanda? Just to have her die. And now there's only 10,000 Vulcans or something alive, so Spock is an endangered species. Stuff like this. It's really like, okay, you're completely changing history. And I mean, it's the Kelvin timeline. You do whatever you want, but why? Why is it necessary? The Centauri slugs was a great reference to the Wrath of Khan, because this movie's nothing but references to other stuff. Because it's like, SETI Alpha 5, where like, Khan has the slugs that he puts in Chekhov's ear. I was like, okay, I get it. You've seen other movies, and you want to include as many references as you can. While Bones is injecting Kirk, he calls to Nurse Chapel. You don't actually see her, but there's a reference to her. Stuff like that's kind of cool. And then finally, we get to this like whole thing where, so they inject Kirk into space because they had a disagreement. So, I mean, like, Kirk didn't even necessarily commit mutiny. He was trying to talk to Spock. Like, he had a point. And Spock's like, eject him into space. So they shoot him out into space. He lands on a planet. Out of all of the planets in the whole galaxy, he lands on the one with Spock Prime on it. And even Spock Prime's like, that's cool. And it's like 129 years from now. So, okay, next generation, 129 years, we get it. Revenge. It's just a revenge story. Like, Nero is just trying to get revenge on Spock. And it's like, why? Why is this a point? Why is this necessary? Spock was the whole reunification to get the worlds together again. That was the whole point of the two-parter in The Next Generation. The sun went supernova, can't stop that, and Romulus was destroyed. We get it. So Nero's all like pissed off and goes after Spock, goes back in time to destroy Vulcan, and that's the point of this whole movie, is it's a revenge story. Like, it's so, like, difficult for me to understand. And then the fact that Kirk happened to land on this planet, not only that did he land on this planet that had Spock already marooned on it, but he happened to land within walking distance of him. Like, it wasn't the opposite continent, it wasn't anything. And then, not only is Kirk and Spock Prime on this planet together, but they run into Scotty. Like, what are the fucking chances of these three guys all being within walking distance on the same planet in the middle of fucking nowhere? Like, oh, God. Like, stuff like that is what bothers me. The nitty-gritty picking apart. Ugh. I'm frustrated. I gotta breathe. Okay. But that being said, Simon Pegg is amazing as Scotty. Like, it was perfect casting. I really, really enjoyed it. And again, like, the casting for this movie is great. So evidently, Scotty has created transwarp beaming. What a coincidence that Scotty's the one that can do this. And he talks about how he beamed Archer's prized beagle. Okay. Enterprise was rough. I get it. Don't fucking touch Porthos. Porthos was amazing. And technically, this is like 100 years after Enterprise. So this isn't necessarily like Captain Jonathan Archer and Porthos. Definitely not Porthos. Probably another dog. But why is that reference even in there? Why would you reference Archer and a beagle? Like, it was so forced and it was so unnecessary. Then Spock Prime giving Scotty his own fucking formula. Like, it's clearly a reference to the Voyage Home, once again, where they're like going back in time and here's the like equation for transparent aluminum. Okay, we get it. So now you're giving Scotty his own equation for transwarp beaming so Kirk and Scotty can beam onto the Enterprise while it's moving, like at warp speed. We've never seen people beam at warp speed, to my recollection. So, it's so forced, and it's so like, well, here you go, that's a coincidence. And of course, like, Scotty ends up getting beamed in the water tube, and he has to let him go. Like, shit like that is so bad. Like, I cannot get over this movie. And then the whole line of, like, going back in time to change things is cheating, which for Kirk is a reference to the Kobayashi Maru cheating, and for Spock, he's like, well, that's a trick I learned from a friend, is clearly a reference to like the, 1,500 times that they've warped around the sun. The one thing I did like is a bunch of little stuff happens at this point where, like, you see the phasers, and when it flips from stun to kill, that was actually kind of funny. It was kind of a nice little thing. Will Wheaton, who was most notably as Wesley Crusher, has a little bit of a cameo. He dubbed one of the Romulan voices. He says something like, "Sir, if we ignite the red matter," and then gets cut off, which I've read one of his books, and he talks about like, oh, like we had to go through all sorts of, like it was supposed to be a fun little cameo, but we got in so much trouble. So stuff like that. Scotty's line of, "Sir, I'm giving her all she's got." No, stop it. Stop making references. Make your own movie. Like, I cannot get behind this. Of course, they defeat Nero, and like the two Spocks meeting each other was like okay, like here's passing the torch. And then Kirk becomes the captain to kind of come full circle, like, oh, now we're one big happy family, and this goes back to the original series. No, it doesn't. No, you're not. And it's rough. It's really, really rough. Like, this movie, the sad thing is out of the trilogy, to me, this is probably the better movie. But it was bad. Like, it was really, really rough for me to get through. Like, it's just too coincidental. Like, I needed it down. Like, take out a lot of the subplots. It's the first movie for this crew, for this cast. You didn't even necessarily need a villain. Just set it up and let's go. Leave all the big stuff for the next movie. But and then I don't even understand all of the Romulan changes, like with the tattoos and they're bald and no references, no explanation. I've been told that like there's comics and stuff that explain it. Why? Why was it ever needed to be done? Like, let's just see the Romulans the way we know them, with the big puffy jackets and the bowl cut. Like, that would have been fine, but God, it was rough for me. It was really, really hard. Like I said, coincidental, my 666th video. This was a bad movie. So overall, I don't know. What do you guys think? Go ahead, let me know what you guys think about the cast, of the crew, of the connections to the original series, the connections to the next generation, all sorts of connections everywhere. This movie's nothing but shout outs. So go ahead, let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys for the next movie, Star Trek Into Darkness.